Trixie says, I'm just starting FPV and I got my first drone. Is the iFlight Nazgul5 V3 a good choice? Yes, it's an excellent choice. That is a really good 5-inch freestyle drone, and it is at a really good price. If you get the analog version, it's at an even better price. It's one of the best values in terms of quality versus performance today. The only thing I would say is make sure you have enough time in the simulator that you need between 10 and 30 hours in the sim, depending on how much of a natural you are. Because a 5-inch, if you try to learn to fly on a 5-inch, you will lose or destroy it way before you learn to fly. If you insist on learning to fly with a real quad, do it with something like a Tiny Whoop that can take a beating and is not going to hurt anybody if it hits them in the face. The best thing to do is to learn to fly in the simulator when you are moderately confident in the simulator. Like you can take off, fly around for a little bit, and then set down mostly where you intend to without just sort of being out of control and crashing. When you can do that in the simulator, then you're good to go in real life. But don't try to learn on a 5-inch if you don't have any experience in a simulator first. As a first 5-inch, that's a great choice. This super chat is from Sam. Hi, Sam. Thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm relatively new to the hobby, and I was wondering what the benefit of having a 107 license is in relation to FPV piloting. And you also mentioned Part 97, which is a ham license. The ham license is required for most video transmitters that we use. A huge number of people don't have a ham license, and no one seems to care. But technically, to be fully legal, you would... Well, that's not even true. Because the interesting thing is that Part 97 ham license is amateur. It is explicitly non-commercial. So, in fact, as far as I can tell, there is no way to use Part 97 for commercial work, even though a lot of people are using Part 97 gear for commercial work. And again, nobody really cares. So get your ham license if you want to be strictly legal, in the most as legal as possible. But realistically, most people don't. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's how it is. As far as Part 107 goes, you are more likely to come across FAA enforcement if you're doing commercial drone work without a Part 107. And the other thing is that if you try to go out and get hired, as opposed to you're self-employed as a drone pilot, if you try to go out and get hired, anyone who hires you is going to want to know that you have 107 for legal and insurance and liability purposes. Again, you might find a realtor somewhere who's like, hey, I need you to take some pictures of these houses, and they don't really know what they're doing. But as soon as you start getting into anybody who knows what they're doing, they're going to want you to have a 107. So if you're going to do commercial drone work, you should probably get a 107 and while you're at it, get your ham license too, just to have your bases covered. But it's just about regulation. It's not, you don't really learn anything in the 107 course that makes you a better pilot. ADHD FPV, thank you for a $250 Canadian. Will WTFOS Butter work on 0607 to roll back for WTFOS? Butter will work on anything. It doesn't matter. That's the beauty of Butter. It will roll back anything, any firmware that's on the V2 goggles or whatever hardware it supports, it will roll back. It uses their sort of emergency recovery bootloader kind of thing to flash them. And I don't think there's anything it doesn't work on. So I don't 100%. I think there's a nuance to your question, ADHD, that I might be missing. But basically, the answer to your question is yes, it will work. I want to address this question that's come up in the Discord. Going back to remote ID, very briefly. The question is, why is it that the FAA allows ultralight aircraft up to, I think it's 250 pounds, without registration, without any licensing? Right? They don't need to have ADS-B or anything. And so the question is, if it's dangerous to have a drone weighing 251 grams flying in the airspace without remote ID, why is it okay to have a 249-pound aircraft with a human on it flying in the airspace without remote ID or something analogous to it? And I agree that that's an interesting distinction. But to me, it doesn't necessarily, it's not as ludicrous as it seems. The FAA's position, as I see it, is that if you are willing to put your own life at risk by flying an experimental aircraft, okay, you will only make that mistake once. And so there's simply more at stake. You can take a drone, an FPV drone, and you can fly it anywhere you want. And then when it creates a problem, you can simply turn off your transmitter, put your goggles in your backpack, and walk away. And that scares people. Whereas if you get in an ultralight and you land your ultralight on the White House lawn, as I think once happened, at the end of that interaction, you will be in custody or deceased. And then that problem will not happen again. And to me, that's why the FAA is more restrictive of drones than they are of aircraft, full-scale aircraft with people in them. Because at the end of the day, with a full-scale aircraft, there is a person in the aircraft who can be held accountable by the law or by physics for their actions, and drones don't have that. Now, the other thing, remote ID also doesn't really solve that problem, but they think it solves that problem. They are all sharing the collective delusion that remote ID solves that problem. And under that belief system, that's why you don't need it for full-scale aircraft or ultralights. Ed 1995, thank you for a €5 super chat. Best 3D printer for TPU and PLA with a big printing area. Direct drive under 450 USD. Sovol SVO6 Plus. Ed, I have had good results with Sovol printers. You have to understand when you buy a Sovol printer that you're getting a printer made to a price. I see people on the Sovol Facebook group, and most people are happy, but every so often there's one person who's like, I hate this printer, it's a POS, I can't believe it. When you buy a printer in the price range of a Sovol, there is a chance that you'll get a bad one, and you may need to jump through some hoops to get it taken care of. There is a good chance that you'll get a good one, and even the good ones you will need to screw with to get them working right. But if you want a larger format 3D printer in the $450 price range, you have to understand that you're going to need to jump through some hoops and go through a little bit of hassle to get good results. If you're okay with that, I think the Sovol SVO6 Plus might be okay. Like, I haven't specifically researched the SVO6 Plus to see if there's any like known defects for it. So I would go look on like the Sovol Facebook group, but the Sovol in general makes okay products at a price. And I think at that price, generally you get what you pay for. You get more than what you pay for. But you have to know going into it that you are going to need to screw with it. You're going to need to tweak it. You're going to need to do some tuning. It is not just an out-of-the-box experience.